God, why do Israel pray and the Almighty does not respond? Because they do not know how to have intent on the name. As the verse says, He knows my name, He will call me and I shall respond. Pasikta Rabbi 22:7 125 Part 3, Names of God in Part 3, we will contemplate the different names of God in Jewish tradition. The Hebrew word for names is Shemot, or in its singular form, Shem. One names versus Sephirot. Just like the Sephirot, the names of God reveal certain aspects of His being. What then is the difference between a name and a Sephirah? For one, the names of God are clearly mentioned in the Bible. A handwritten Torah scroll is written by a sofer, a scribe. Before inscribing any of the names of God on the Torah's parchment, the sofer must sanctify his thoughts to the names of the Sephirot, on the other hand, when they appear in the Bible, are not treated in any special way. Chassidic teachings add to this by explaining that the difference between God's names and the Sephirot can best be understood in the context of our direct relationship with the Almighty in prayer. When praying, God can only be addressed using His names, but He cannot be addressed through the Sephirot. Translating this difference into grammar, we would say that the names of God are like proper nouns, while the Sephirot are like adjectives. In the words of the sages, we must address God and not His attributes, adjectives. 3. In simple words, when addressing God with any one of His names we are addressing God Himself, whereas were we to turn to Him as the crown or as the wisdom we would be addressing His attributes, which emanate from His essence but are not He Himself. While, as we shall see, there is a correspondence between the divine names and the Sephirot, the names refer to the 126. What you need to know about Kabbalah essence of God, the emanator, within His emanations, not to the emanations themselves. The Arizal stressed the importance of knowing the names of the Almighty and their meanings. In the spirit of the quote introducing this chapter, the Arizal revealed the Kavanot, the Kabbalistic meanings and mystical intentions of the prayer services text, as based on the holy names of the Almighty. As we shall see in chapter 11, the Baal Shem Tov stressed heartfelt devotion during prayer. Thus, the importance of knowing the names of the Almighty and their meanings became secondary. Nonetheless, knowledge of God's names remains essential for gaining a clear understanding of Kabbalah, especially in its contemplative and meditative forms. 4 categories of holy names in general. There are 4 different categories of names ascribed to the Almighty. The first is the essential name, also called the Tetragrammaton, meaning, the 4-letter name. Because of the special sanctity of the 4-letter name, it was only pronounced in the Holy Temple in Jerusalem. To refer to it, we use one of its 4 letters permutations, which is pronounced Havaya. In the second category are those names, which by Jewish law are sacred and may not be erased. We will examine each of these names in chapter 9. The third category includes the connotations used to describe God in the Bible, and by the sages. The largest and most explicit group of divine connotations that appears in the Torah is the 13 principles of divine mercy. We will examine them and a few other connotations in chapter 10. Finally, the fourth category of names includes all the words that appear in the Torah. Kabbalah teaches us that the entire Torah is indeed one great name of God and that each of its words is a divine name in particular. We will examine this group of names in chapter 11. Chapter 7, Part 3, Names of God. 127. These 4 categories of divine names can be seen to correspond to the 4 letters of God's essential name, Havaya, a subject we will return to at the end of chapter 11. Notes. 1. The Hebrew word for name is Shem, the given name of one of Noah's 3 sons, Genesis 5:32, implying that his role was the preservation and sanctification of the divine name. Today, the children of Shem are called Semites, where this word is usually, exclusively, identified with the Jewish people. 2. Shulchan Aruch, Yordai 276. 3. Addressing God in prayer is considered an act of approaching God and can only be done through God's proper names. The Sephirot are the vehicle by which God casts His benevolence on our reality, be it physical or spiritual, in a sense, the act of God approaching reality. A similar distinction is made regarding the role of a doctor. Whereas prayers for health can be addressed only to the Almighty, The actual energy that heals may pass through a doctor. In general, the rule that God affects us through the medium of a distinct attribute, like the Sefirat or a righteous individual, a Zodic, or a doctor, leads to the conclusion that whenever we beseech God for his aid, we should make a vessel, that is, take action of our own accord so that God's blessing can have a place to subsist in. It is important to know that all idolatry begins with the mistake of treating the medium, the vessel, as a false god. 4. Rabbi Moses ben Nachmanides, in the introduction to his commentary on the Torah. One shall name of the Almighty, that is, the name that portrays his essence, one is spelled by the 4 letters. It is the most sacred of God's names. In English, this name is referred to as the Tetragrammaton, meaning the 4-letter name, because in Hebrew it is spelled with 4 letters. God's essential name is surely the most important word in the Torah. In the 5 books of Moses this name appears exactly 1820 times, 2 a finding that was revealed only about 120 years ago, 3 because of its sanctity it is never articulated. Instead it is referred to either by the word Hashem, which simply means the name, or Havaya, one of the 12 possible permutations of its letters. Due to its great sanctity, this name may only be pronounced in the Holy Temple, and its correct pronunciation is not known today. There are many verses in the Bible in which God's essential name appears twice or more. Sometimes, the repetition even seems redundant. The most prominent among these is the first of the 2 verses that contain the 13 principles of divine mercy, which begin with the words, Havaya, Havaya. For the seemingly redundant appearance of the essential name in this verse is interpreted in Hasidic teachings as referring to 2 ways in which the name describes the Almighty. One way refers to God's essence as it manifests in creation. The other way refers to his essence as it transcends creation. We cannot grasp the meaning of the higher, transcendent level of God's essential name, for indeed it is beyond our very conception of meaning. But the meaning of God's essential name as manifest in creation can be understood. In fact, etymologically, chapter 8, God's essential name, 129 the name Havaya is derived from the Hebrew root. The root form of the verb to be. The name's grammatical form implies bringing into existence. Thus, God's essential name, as manifest in creation, can be understood to mean, he who continuously brings all reality into existence. 5. Accordingly, all of life and existence can be conceived of as a 4-stage unfolding process that corresponds to the 4 letters of God's essential name. We now proceed to look at how the name Havaya reveals how God is manifest through creation. As mentioned in chapter 4, God's essential name is actually the most basic contemplative model in Kabbalah. In Chassidut the 4 stages of the creative process are known as contraction, expansion, extension, and, second, expansion. They correspond to the letters of God's essential name, as follows. Yud, contraction. Hey, expansion. Vav, extension. Hey, expansion. The essential name and the Sefirat. Recall that in the previous chapter we discussed the Sefirat in the context of divinity, by looking at God's creative act. Indeed, since the essential name of God refers to his essence as the continuous creator, it follows that the Sefirat are a manifestation of this name. In other words, the 10 Sefirat can be understood as an explicit revelation of the same 4-stage divine process of creation encoded in the 4-letter name. The letter Yud is known in Kabbalah as a formed point, meaning that though it resembles a small point, still it is well formed. The point-like nature of the Yud graphically symbolizes the stage of contraction. Conceptually, it corresponds to the Sephira of wisdom, whose seminal nature is likened many times to a point of potential through which something enters reality. Wisdom 130? What you need to know about Kabbalah serves as the entry point for intellectual energy to penetrate the mind. The letter He is drawn with 3 lines, which represent the expansion of the point of the Yud into all 3 spatial dimensions. 6. Conceptually, it parallels the task of the Sephira of understanding, to expand and develop the seminal point of energy that is the Sephira of wisdom. Because of their enduring partnership, wisdom and understanding are likened to a father and mother. The mother, symbolized by the letter He, is impregnated by the seminal point of energy given by the father. The mother encloses the father's seed of wisdom and nurtures it in her womb. The fetus of understanding grows and expands in the womb until reaching full development, ready to be born into reality. The letter Vav resembles a vertical line that extends downwards, connecting the higher realms with the lower. As such, it graphically symbolizes the stage of extension. The numerical value of the letter Vav is 6, and it corresponds to the 6 emotive sephirot from loving kindness to foundation, which are collectively known as attributes, midot. Building on the imagery of wisdom and understanding as father and mother, the 6 attributes are considered to be the sons born from the mother's womb. The Vav's power of extension allows it to carry the concealed reality of understanding, the first Hey, into the revealed reality represented by the Sephirah of Kingdom, which corresponds to the second Hey. Like in the first Hey, the letter's 3 lines represent the 3 spatial dimensions, but this time of our immanent and revealed reality, also known as God's kingdom on earth. In Kabbalah, the matriarch Leah, who gave birth to 6 sons and 1 daughter, represents the mother figure. Conceptually, the second Hey is likened to the daughter of the family. We have covered 9 out of the 10 Sephirot. What is missing is the Sephirah of crown. As was stressed in the previous chapters, crown represents those things, like the superconscious, that are transcendent or anterior to our perceptible reality. Indeed, though chapter 8, God's essential name, 131, there is no letter that represents the Sephirah of crown directly, it is, appropriately, merely alluded to by the upper tip of the first letter, the Yud. In Kabbalah, the Yud's upper tip is called the formless point, that is, a simple point possessing no spatial dimensions, a name that indicates the unfathomable transcendence of the crown, to which it refers. As the Yud and the first Hey are the father and mother, the upper tip of the Yud points to the third partner 7 in marriage, God, from whom the infinite power to procreate derives. The full correspondence of the letters of God's essential name to the Sephirot is as follows. Tip of Yud, crown God. Yud, wisdom father. Hey, understanding mother. Vav, loving kindness through foundation sons. Hey, kingdom daughter. The essential name and the human body. Above, we saw how the Sephirot correspond to the parts of the human body. Let us now examine how the letters of the essential name of God correspond in a similar fashion. In Ezekiel's vision of the resurrection of the dead, 8, we find a 4-level depiction of the body as it is reconstituted: bones, blood vessels, flesh, and skin. The 5th level, the spirit, which Ezekiel prophesies about separately, gives life to the inanimate body. The bones, blood vessels, flesh, and skin correspond to the 4 letters of the divine name, with the tip of the Yud corresponding to the 5th transcendent, and categorically different, level of the spirit as follows. 132. What you need to know about Kabbalah. Tip of Yud, crown spirit of life. Yud, wisdom bones. Hey, understanding blood vessels. Vav, loving kindness through foundation flesh. Hey, kingdom skin. Let us explain this chart in some detail. The first letter of the divine name, Yud, is the most compact of all the Hebrew letters, serving in a sense as their structural core. In the human body, the Yud therefore corresponds to the bones and the skeletal frame in general. The skeletal system, the core frame of the human body, supports all the other physiological systems, the muscular system, the circulatory system, the nervous system, etc., which are layered upon it. 9. In addition, the Yud often symbolizes a seed, from which new life emerges. As such, it corresponds to the bone marrow, which produces blood cells, which constitute 3/4 of the body's cells. The second letter of the divine name, Hey, refers to the Sephirah of understanding as it resides in the heart and from there spreads out to enliven and animate the entire body and its organs. As a physiological system, the Hey corresponds to the circulatory system, the body's inner channel of life force, its most basic level of self-consciousness and self-preservation. The Hey expands in all 3 dimensions from the seminal point of the Yud, the bone marrow. The third letter of the divine name, Vav, refers to the 6 emotive attributes, as noted above. Emotive attributes are to the Sephirah of understanding. The first Hey, as the flesh that fills out the body, is to the blood vessels that it encloses. Rectified emotions are referred to in the Bible as the heart of flesh. 10. Thus, The Vav of God's essential name corresponds to the flesh that Ezekiel saw in his prophecy. Chapter 8, God's essential name. 133. The fourth letter of the divine name, the final He, refers to the skin, the most exterior layer, which serves as the body's clothing. Skin serves as well as the body's censor and protector and is responsible for its appearance, thus fittingly serving as the kingdom, Malkut, of the four general divisions of the body. Whenever the four-level model of God's essential name Havaya is used to contemplate existence, there is always a fifth, higher and all-inclusive level that resides above the four to enliven them. The fifth level corresponds to the upper tip of the Yud of God's name. This fifth level is the spiritual source of existence, the spirit of life, as drawn into the body by means of the respiratory system. The essential name and the four worlds, just as the letters of Havaya reveal the structure of the Sefirat and the body, they also correspond to the model of the four worlds, emanation, creation, formation, and action, commonly denoted by an acronym comprising their initial letters in Hebrew, Abia. Though usually the word world strikes up images of physical space and the objects and creatures that inhabit that space, in Kabbalah, worlds refers, first and foremost, to states of consciousness. Entering a world means entering a certain conscious state or perspective on one's own being and surroundings. Kabbalah divides the infinitude of possible perspectives on reality into four general categories. The differential characteristic distinguishing between the four worlds is the amount of selflessness, or nullification of self in each. In the highest world, the world of emanation, selflessness is so powerful that independent selfhood cannot even be imagined. The world of emanation is described as being absolutely one with the Creator, which leaves no possibility for a reality distinct from Him. The Tikkun Zohar describes this state of being as He and His life are one, He and His self are one. 11 Where His life refers to the 134. What you need to know about Kabbalah lights of the Sefirat of the world of emanation, and His self refers to the vessels of its Sefirat. In the world of creation, selfhood can be imagined, but consciousness is not yet independent enough of the Creator to be considered fully distinct. In this world, independent reality exists only as a possibility. The world of formation is where perspective is based on generalities. Particulars are not yet possible at this level of consciousness. In formation there is already a sense of selfhood, but only when grasped in language that is not personal. What this means is that though there can be consciousness of lion as a type of animal, consciousness cannot yet differentiate between particular, real lions. Regarding oneself, one can be aware of the existence of humanity, or even of a particular nation, but not of one's own self as part of humanity or that nation. Finally, the consciousness of the world of action grants the perspective that we are usually accustomed to regarding ourselves. Here consciousness is able to grasp itself as a distinct and separate entity with its own being. The four worlds correspond to the letters of Havaya as follows. Yud, emanation. He, creation. Vav, formation. He, action. To deepen our understanding of the worlds and to begin to see how the templates of Kabbalah exist in parallel and divulge layer upon layer of meaning, let us see how the worlds correspond to the Sefirat. To prevent confusion we must stress again that everything in Kabbalah is essentially holographic. Meaning, that though each world contains within itself all of the Sefirat, lights and vessels, as noted above regarding the world of emanation, the four worlds themselves can be seen to correspond to the Sefirat as follows. Chapter 8, God's essential name. 135. Yud, emanation wisdom. He, creation understanding. Vav, formation loving kindness through foundation. He, action kingdom. From this last more complex correspondence we can learn a great deal. Using the symbolic imagery of the Sefirat as father, mother, sons, and daughter discussed above, in Tikkun Zohar the world of emanation is described as the dwelling place of the Father principle, and the throne, a symbol for the world of creation, is described as the place where the mother principle dwells. The throne as a symbol for the world of creation is meant to depict the descent of consciousness, for when sitting down, the head is lowered and brought closer to the feet. This state thus represents lower consciousness which already allows for the possibility of being that is, only seemingly, separate and distinct from the Creator. Kabbalah locates the source of souls as beneath a throne. 12 implying that those souls originate in the world of creation, they possess an innate ability to descend such that their consciousness grasps the reality of the lower worlds. Above we mentioned that the father and mother principles are always united, never fully severing their bond. As such, though the throne is a symbol for the world of creation, which corresponds to the mother principle, its awning represents the consciousness of the father principle, the world of emanation, which is forever hovering close to the mother. In Chassidut, the image of the throne and the act of sitting as metapahers for the sephira of understanding are explained in depth. Sitting is comparable to the intellectual act of understanding, an idea captured in the Hebrew idiom the sitting. That is, stability of consciousness. 13. In English, similar usage is made in the idiom this dish does not sit well with me, meaning that it is not well digested. To have a real and lasting effect, knowledge must be internalized, indicating that true understanding is related to internalization and assimilation. 14 Since 136. What you need to know about Kabbalah. The world of creation is the origin of souls. We learn that the soul can be reached primarily through understanding. Below the origin of the souls in the world of creation is the world of formation, the origin of the angels. As noted, the world of formation corresponds to the emotional and habitual realm of the Sephirot, loving kindness through foundation. That is why the archangels are usually identified with these Sephirot. Michael corresponds to loving kindness, Gabriel to might, Raphael to beauty, etc. Finally, the lowest world, the world of action, which corresponds to the Sephira of kingdom, serves as the origin of the forces and laws of natural motion. In the vision of Ezekiel, natural motion is described as governed by the Ophanim, angels that move by rotating, much like a bicycle wheel. Kabbalah explains that motion and force in nature are circular as they lack free will, which would free them from their repetitive cyclical nature. Thus, the consciousness of the world of action generates an astounding paradox. On the one hand, it grants those who have it a feeling of being independent and separate from the Almighty. On the other, it precludes true free will, locking one in one's own repetitive and incorrigible being. It is only by tapping into higher levels of consciousness that we are able to, in any way, break the mold of our own selves. Many of the Torah's commandments focus on rectifying the world of action, 15, which is why many of them are prescribed daily. Of all the commandments, daily prayer is the most illustrative of our focus on the Sephira of kingdom and the world of action. By repeating the same prayers day after day, we sustain the consciousness of the world of action and reconnect it with the higher worlds, making sure that it does not fall into a state of total separation from the higher spiritual realms. Just as the performance of recurring daily chores like eating, drinking, sleeping, etc., sustain life, prayer, and other commandments focused on the world of action, sustain free will and our ability to continually develop spiritually. Chapter 8, God's Essential Name. 137 To gain a clearer understanding of the different levels of consciousness inherent in each of the four worlds, we will make one final correspondence, reflecting upon the image of the rectified individual that inhabits each. A mistake that is commonly made before studying Chassidut is that Kabbalah prescribes that every person should attain the consciousness of the highest world, the world of emanation. Chassidut teaches us that in reality, by nature, not everyone is capable of doing so. In fact, the overwhelming majority of people cannot. 16 Instead, as each of the four worlds is actually a composite of all four, we have referred to this as the inter-inclusive, or holographic nature of Kabbalistic models. Our real goal is to attain the level of emanation within the level of consciousness suited to us. Individuals possessing the consciousness of the world of emanation are unique and rare. They are called Tzaddikim, and the Bible describes them as the foundation of the world. 17 The Almighty places them in each generation to guide others by lighting their environs with the energy of holiness and divinity. 18 Inhabiting the world of creation is the scholar of the Torah whose entire being is focused on mastering the complexities of the revealed dimension of the Torah. The Talmud and Halacha, together with the secrets of the concealed dimension. The Torah scholar is described in Hebrew as one who knows the book, 19 referring to the Torah. The consciousness of the world of Christ. The Torah scholar a certain sense of separate and independent being from the Almighty, which can lead to feelings of superiority over less scholarly individuals. The rectified Torah scholar, though, as taught by the Baal Shem Tov, taps into the level of emanation that is included within the world of creation and feels that as much as he has learnt and understood, the Torah still lies pure and whole before him, untouched and untasted. Thus, in his inner being he experiences the Torah's everlasting freshness as the Almighty continues to delight in it as his object of recreation. 20. The consciousness of the world of formation corresponds to the emotional realm of the soul from loving kindness to 138. What you need to know about Kabbalah, foundation, and the individual with a rectified formation consciousness is referred to as a joyful chassid. Joy permeates the heart, as it is said, "You have given joy into my heart." 21. From its origin in the Sephirah of understanding, the mother of all the heart's emotions. Indeed, joy unites all of the emotive attributes of the heart, even the apparent opposites of love and fear. 22. In addition, joy combats and counterbalances the sorrow of the heart brought about by self-consciousness. To unite opposites and counterbalance self-consciousness are expressions of emanation drawn into the consciousness of the world of formation by the attribute of joy. Thus, the joyful chassid, the literal meaning of chassid is a man of loving kindness. Chest, the primary attribute of the heart, is characteristic of the rectified state of the heart in the world of formation. Finally, the great majority of consciousness lies in the world of action. The rectified individual in this realm is described as the simple Jew. Years ago this term was used to describe uneducated Jews who could just barely read prayers in Hebrew. In chassid, though it refers to any Jew who, for all of his sophistication and complexity, he can even be a great scholar, is dedicated to the tasks of life and the Torah in a simple, honest, and unassuming manner. The simple, pure faith in God of a simple Jew is the manifestation of emanation in the world of action. In Hebrew, simplicity also stems from the word meaning, fully exposed, implying that ultimately the highest nature of the Almighty, even above the revelation of divinity in the world of emanation, when exposed, will be revealed in the consciousness of the world of action and the simple Jews that inhabit it. As noted, each of these four types of individuals reflects the level of emanation within each of the four worlds. Indeed, numerically, the four idioms used to describe them, in Hebrew, are exactly equal to one another. 1 equals. The Zodiac, the foundation of the world. A equals. A joyful chassid equals. Who knows the book Simple Jew? Equals 430. 430 is the numerical value of the chapter 8, God's essential name. 139 word soul. Implying that every soul possesses the potential to become one of these four, depending upon the soul's root in one of the four spiritual worlds, and moreover, that each and every soul is gifted with an innate affinity to each of the four spiritual archetypes. Havaya, the soul of the Sephirot. Each of the Sephirot is a composite of divine light within a vessel. The divine light enters the vessel of the Sephirah much as the soul enters the body in order to enliven it. For each Sephirah, the particular aspect of the divine light that enters it corresponds to a particular meditative vocalization of the essential name, Havaya. The vessel of each Sephirah corresponds to one of the sanctified names of God that belong to the second category of names, which will be discussed in the next chapter. Thus, each of the Sephirot is actually a composite of a form of the essential name of the Almighty as it enlivens one of his other sanctified names. In the world of emanation, where these names are principally manifested, both the vessels and the lights of the Sephirot are manifestations of divinity. At consciousness levels lower than emanation, the lights represent the divine essence that is enclosed within the mundane aspects of reality. Each of the meditative vocalizations of the essential name, Havaya, is formed by using one of the Hebrew vowel signs together with each of the four letters of the name. It should be noted that all of these vocalizations are mystical in nature and do not appear anywhere in the Bible. They are never pronounced because, as mentioned, it is forbidden to pronounce the name Havaya with any vocalization. Instead, the vocalizations are used as the subject of deep meditation during prayer. The order of the vocalizations as they signify the lights of the Sephirot is as follows. 140. What you need to know about Kabbalah. Crown. Understanding. Wisdom. Might. Loving kindness. Beauty. Acknowledgement. Victory. Foundation. Kingdom. Notice that the Sephirah of kingdoms Havaya is without a vowel sign altogether. This is because kingdom possesses nothing of its own, but rather receives all of its divine energy from the Sephirot that precede it. Apart from these 9 meditative vocalizations of the essential name Havaya, there are 2 other vocalizations that appear explicitly in the Torah. The first and most common vocalization, close to all 1820 instances of Havaya in the 5 books of Moses, is the letters of Havaya with the vowel signs of the holy name. When this name appears outside of the Bible or the liturgy, it is customarily pronounced Abni. The name is then written, and in sacred contexts is pronounced as. In non-sacred contexts it is usually referred to as simply Hashem, the name, or Havaya. Kabbalistically, this is the primary manifestation of the name Havaya and relates in particular to the vessel of the Sephirah of beauty, to be discussed in the next chapter, whose inner experience is mercy. Therefore, throughout the Torah, God's essential name Havaya is associated with the principle of mercy, the fundamental manner in which God relates to creation. This is the reason that, in the Talmud, the sages refer to the Almighty as the Merciful One, Rachmana, as noted above. Chapter 8, God's Essential Name. 141 The second explicit vocalization of Havaya in the Torah is with the vowel signs of the name Elukim. 23 and is pronounced Elukim. This vocalization corresponds to the vessel of the Sephirah of understanding, and we will discuss it further in the next chapter. Letter fillings of the essential name. One of the most important concepts in Kabbalah is that of letter filling. This refers to writing out a letter as it would be vocalized. For instance, the first letter of the Hebrew alphabet, Aleph, would be written out as the 3 letters Aleph Lamed Pei. The initial letter of the letter filling is naturally the letter itself, or the root letter, while the newly revealed additional letters are considered the filling letters. Letter filling reveals the hidden potential inherent within each of the 22 letters of the Hebrew alphabet, as it creates a bridge between the letter in its written form and the letter when it is vocalized in speech, thus symbolizing the unity of the written Torah and the oral tradition. In the language of Kabbalah, every letter is pregnant with its filling, and writing out the filling is like opening the womb of the letter. The holiest and most important word in the Torah is of course God's essential name, Havaya, the source of all else. As such, much of the Arizal's Kabbalah is based on the letter filling of this name. In fact, the letter filling of Havaya makes its appearance in the Arizal's cosmogony, that is, the order of creation, long before the Sephirot become revealed. Indeed, in the Kavanot, the mystical intentions taught by the Arizal, the filling of Havaya is key. A few of the Hebrew letters can be filled in more than one way. In the name Havaya, spelled Yud, Hey, Vav, Hey, the letters Hey and Vav can be filled in the following ways. Can be filled as, or, can be filled as, or. Some quick math will tell us that because of these variations, Havaya can be filled in 27 different ways, 24 as follows. 142. What you need to know about Kabbalah numerical value. 72. 63. 67. 63. 54. 58. 62. 53. 57. 63. 54. 58. 54. 45. 49. 53. 44. 48, 67, 58, 62, 53, 58, 49, 57, 48, 52. The sum of the numerical values of all 27 fillings is 1521. In a beautiful example of self-reference, 1521 is also the square of 39, which is the numerical value of the phrase Havaya, is 1. The sum of the root letters, meaning the initial letters of each filling, is of course 27. 26 equals 702, the numerical value of Shabbat. And, the sum of the filling letters is 819, which is the sum of the squares of the integers from 1 to 13, that is, 1, 4, 9, 16, 169 equals 819. 819 is the numerical value of the Hebrew idiom, which means absolute oneness, an idiom commonly appearing in Chassidut to describe the oneness of Havaya. Indeed, in Chapter 8, God's Essential Name, 143 Mathematical Language, 819 is referred to as the Pyramid of 13, 13 being the numerical value of the word 1. In Hebrew, of these 27 possible fillings of Havaya, the Zohar and the Arizal identify 4 as most central. 72, 63, 45, 52. These 4 central fillings are referred to by their numerical values, in Kabbalah. In another example of the holographic quality of Kabbalistic models, these fillings also form a 4-tiered model themselves, with each one corresponding to one of the 4 letters of Havaya. 72 corresponds to the Yud, 63 to the first Hey, 45 to the Vav, and 52 to the second Hey. Altogether the central fillings have 39 letters, which we recall as the value of the phrase Havaya, is 1, and the root of 1521, the sum of all 27-letter fillings. The sum of the central fillings' numerical values is 232, or 4 times 58. 58 is the numerical value of the Hebrew word for grace. 0.25 In another example of self-reference, the sum of the letter fillings that make up the right-to-left diagonal of the chart above is 58. Notes: 1. Although no name can fully express God's essence, the name Havaya refers to God's essence. It is thus referred to as the or the unique name, essential name. The explicit name 2. 1820 equals 26. 70. 26 is the numerical value of God's essential name, Havaya itself. 70 is the numerical value of the word for secret. In Hebrew, together, these 2 words appear in a verse regarding the importance of God's essential name. The secret of Havaya is revealed to those who fear Him. Psalms 25:14. 144. What you need to know about Kabbalah 3. By Rabbi Pinchas Horowitz, the author of a beautiful volume on various mathematical properties of the Torah, titled Ahavat Torah, which means love of the Torah. Indeed, before the advent of computers, counting the number of times that a word appears in the Torah was a labor of love. The sages relate that title scribe, like Ezra the scribe, see Nehemiah 12:26, 36, was given on account of the person being adept at counting the letters of the Torah. See also the previous chapter regarding the relationship between scribe and number in Hebrew. 4. Exodus 34:6. 5. Sher HaYichid v'Ha'emina, chapter 4. 6. The letter He is regarded in Kabbalah as representing a 3-dimensional figure projected on a 2-dimensional surface. Its 2 longer sides, the vertical and horizontal lines that are connected, lay in the same plane, and are its width and length. The short, detached foot on its left suggests a 3rd dimension running into the page as it were. Chassidic teachings explain that the letter He's width, length, and depth dimensions correspond to the 3 means of expression, also called the 3 garments of the soul: thought, speech, and action. For more, see the Hebrew letters, pages 80 ff. 7. Kedushin 30b. 8. Ezekiel 37 1-14. 9. The word for bone, etzem, in Hebrew, also means self, or essence, that is, the core of one's being, thus providing a spiritual correspondence between the Yud, the essential letter in the essential name, and the bones of the human body. 10. Ezekiel 11:19, 36-26. 11. Introduction to Tikkun Zohar. See Tanya, Izrat HaKadosh 20. 12. Zohar 3, 29b and 123b. 13. See Consciousness and Choice, pages 28-30. The morning prayer service is actually a tour of consciousness, leading the person praying through all 4 worlds. When reciting the Shema, we are in the world of creation, which is one reason why we are normally instructed to sit while reciting it. In addition, the Shema itself begins with the word here, which is explained elsewhere is the chapter 8, God's essential name. 145 Physical sense associated with the Sephira of understanding and the soul's capacity to internalize a message. 14. See also the art of education, especially chapter 1. 15. In our own generation, the Lubavitcher Rebbe stressed that action, that is, a consciousness focused on the world of action and its perfection is the main thing. 16. In explaining this, the Baal Shem Tov quoted the Talmud, which says that many tried to attain the level of Rabbi Shimon bar Yochai, but failed. Baratra 35b. The Baal Shem Tov explained that not only did they fail to attain the higher level that was not suited for them, but that by disregarding their real place and locus of rectification, they lost their own predestined share in the world. Keter Shem Tov, 4. 17. Proverbs 10:25. 18. Yoma 38b. 19. Isaiah 29:11. 20. God's recreational attitude towards the Torah is described as the delights of the king in himself. 21. Psalms 4:8. 22. In the benediction before the Shema we say, and unite our heart to love and to fear your name. The word unite also means make joyful, indicating this same idea that joy is the source of love and fear and the power to unify them. 23. For example, see Deuteronomy 3:24. 24. Note that out of the 27 values, there are only 13 unique ones and their sum is 724. The sum of the four most important fillings, 72, 63, 45, and 52 is 232. The sum of all 27 possible fillings is 1521. The filling that equals 45 is considered the one that acts to rectify reality, and is therefore called the path of emanation, or akatzilot. Together, 4, 232, 724 1521 equals 2522, which is equal to 97. 26. 26 is of course the value of Havaya, while 97 is the sum of the two fillings 45 and 52, which are the central figures in the process of the rectification of the universe. This is another beautiful example of self-reference. 25. See in length in the Art of Education, Supplementary SAG 146 the Sanctified Names 9we. Now turn to look at the second category of God's names. These names are sanctified in Jewish law, which limits their pronunciation and prohibits erasing them, or even one of their letters, or treating them with disrespect, once they have been written down. 1 In Kabbalah, each name of God is seen to manifest the divine power inherent in one of the Sephirot. Thus, each of the Sephirot has a name that corresponds to it in particular. Pronounced Iki Asher Iki? Just as the name Havaya derives from the Hebrew root to be, so does this name. Literally, the name Iki means I will be. Unlike the name Havaya, which never appears in the Bible explicitly as a verb form, he shall bring into being Iki, or, when not a name of God, pronounced Ahei, appears frequently in the Bible as a verb in its literal sense of I will be. In fact, in the entire Bible, it appears only 3 times in reference to the Almighty, all 3 in one verse during God's dialogue with Moses at the burning bush. There, God charged Moses with the mission of redeeming the Jewish people from Egypt, and Moses said to God, Behold, when I come to the people of Israel, and shall say to them, The God of your fathers has sent me to you, and they shall say to me, What is his name? What shall I say to them? And God said to Moses, I will be that which I will be, and he said, Thus shall you say to the people of Israel, I will be has sent me to you. 2 Chapter 9, The Sanctified Names. 147 is a name of God. Iki retains its literal meaning of I will be, implying new birth or revelation of self. The above quote says that the essence of God's self, as it were, will be revealed with the spiritual birth of the Jewish people through their redemption from exile. Thus, there is a double revelation occurring. At one and the same time, the Jewish people are born into the world, while at the same time, God becomes manifest in reality through their birth. These simultaneous revelations are alluded to in the phrase, I will be that which I will be. The first I will be reflects God's manifestation, while the second refers to the birth of the souls of Israel from the supernal womb. According to this interpretation, I will be that which I will be reads, I will be revealed in the world by means of the birth of my people Israel into the world, that is, their redemption from Egypt, for my very essence is identified with my children's essence and their birth is my birth. Iki as God's manifestation of his self corresponds to the Sephirah of crown. Iki as the supernal womb from which the souls of Israel are born corresponds to the Sephirah of understanding, which, as noted, is known as the mother.